this morning, I was watching. Rufai of Arise Television said, Oshiomhole lied when he said Ramaphosa had interest in, that is South Africa president. He has interest in MTN. And that is why I said, when we go for his economic jugular in Nigeria, he will behave more responsibly because he has been silent, even in the face of those killings. But two things he didn't reply to. But what he claimed was that Ramaphosa's company, President Ramaphosa's company that had shares in MTN had divested. But that is begging the question, whether it is Ramaphosa or it is other South African big people who are running those lucrative businesses in Nigeria, and they are doing so peacefully, unmolested. I'm saying, regardless, it's not the fact that, because President Ramaphosa may be president today, won't be president tomorrow. But if the logic of the government of South Africa and a segment of the South African black population is that you don't want Nigeria to do petty trading, then you can't come here and do big trading.
Let me come in quickly.
Like ShopRite. Now, lastly, Rufai lied when the other day, he tried to confuse people as if he's a foreign consultant. He said, why are we not killing, we should nationalize the businesses of Nigerians, of rich men in northern Nigeria. I don't know why he seeks to regionalize what obviously is a national challenge with regards to people who are being killed by bandits, etc. But Rufai should know better that, as a matter of fact, since he's somebody who talking about empirical evidence and empirics, even though most of the time he quote figures out of context, the fact of the matter is that people who have been convicted for aiding and abetting terrorism, killing of people in the north, was convicted, their property has been forfeited to the federal government. That is worse than to nationalize, not to seize. It's not taken over and pay compensation.
All right.
So if that happens,
Senator Oshiomhole.
If that is happening, so he asked, because he asked me that day, he said, what about people in the north where the Nigerians are being killed? Just got it completely wrong.
All right, let me
so when he said I lied, he is actually a pathological liar. He twists facts in a manner as if for him.
Let's focus on this issue of this.
Whose shops have been looted. Is anybody arguing that they are Nigerian-owned businesses? They are not Nigerian government-owned businesses. They are owned by Nigerian citizens. Exactly the same way as South African citizens have interest in those companies in varying degrees. That is the point. If you impose economic sanction, but what I do not advocate, we should behave as a more civilized people. We shouldn't kill, we shouldn't maim, we shouldn't burn, or we follow the law. The law allows us to take over. There's a hostile takeover, there's a friendly takeover. So if MTN is quoted, very good. That portion that is still held by South African citizens, that portion should be taken and managed by Nigerians. And I saw Rufai today laboring in a very poor manner that Nigerians can't manage, which is indicting himself, not our nation, as far as I'm concerned. He was talking about Etisala, that it had not succeeded. I said, how can you be such a poor liar, Rufai, that you don't remember that Glo is owned by a Nigerian, Mr. Adenuga? He's alive and well. How can you not know that Airtel has sufficient Nigeria content and is doing well? Why are you suggesting that Nigerians cannot hold a GSM company? Because he's so self-opinionated, so paranoid that he lied lavishly and he lied confidently.
But this is not a reporting. This is not a reporting platform.
We're here to. But let me speak to the point. The other point you made.
Yeah, and I'm saying that is the past government not being complicit.
You said it all. Nigeria have been the poaching bank. They poach us in Ghana, we turn the other cheek. But for Ghana, sometimes I have mixed feelings. Because once upon a time, we had a Shagari government that asked Ghanaians to go home. That is what gave rise to this popular Ghana must go. And because for me, that is the problem. When governments are in trouble, they sought to divert attention. Exactly the same way as President Ramaphosa is in trouble at the moment with his own people. And it was very convenient for him to behave as if the problem is not caused by him, it's caused by other Africans. So I believe that we can't be the proverbial poach bank that Ghana can punch us, South Africa can punch us, Any country can punch. Even there was a time, I think this small country had legs in our stores. For example, if you take over, because again, I was shocked that Rufai said Nigerians cannot manage. Whatever you want to see, Peter Obi is managing his trading business. So if we crash ShopRite, Peter Obi can take it over. Well, he can expand his business. I don't want to mention that.
ShopRite business is actually now being divested as a different entity from the South African. So
I took time to understand the way in which multinationals work. The same person can bear different names in different countries. They can use different purpose vehicles to buy shares as such that the real owner, you will never see him. That is the world of business.
Let's take a quick break because we
should not be the one that always turn the other cheek.
Xenophobic attack is not the only matter I wish to take up with you. But let's go on a first break on the program. But when we return,
I remember that we nationalized many companies because of South Africa. We nationalized Shell. We nationalized British Petroleum because America and UK and Europe, or some European countries, were supporting apartheid. So if we use economic tools to fight for their freedom, we should use the same tools to bring them to their senses.
All right.
If they get crazy with Nigerian people.
And I hope that they've come to their senses and the government of South Africa is learning what may be a very unpalatable
and I forget there's one Malema who one of the political parties. Which is a less
an opposition leader.
When we talk of party ideology, Walema is a member of South African Parliament. And he said, this is a misdirected aggression. If President Ramaphosa's government has failed to pursue job-led growth, to create opportunities for South African people, they should not visit that anger on African brothers and sisters who have been with them over the years. That, for me, is a voice to be commended.
All right, Senator.
You know that even in that badness, there is an outstanding South Africa of note leading a party saying, even if this will cost him his votes, even if the South Africa will not vote for him for telling them the truth, for reminding them about their history.
After watching that interview, one thing is crystal clear. This is no longer just a simple disagreement between a politician and a journalist. What we are seeing now is a bigger conversation about media credibility, political image management, and the growing tension between Nigerian politicians and aggressive television interviewers. Let's break this down carefully. First of all, Adams Oshiomhole did not come to Channels Television casually. You could immediately sense from his tone that he was deeply offended by what happened on Aris TV. Right from the beginning, he sounded like a man determined to clear his name and confront what he believes was an unfair public portrayal. And interestingly, instead of merely defending himself politically, Oshiomhole went after Rufai Oseni personally and professionally. Calling a journalist a pathological liar on live television is not a small accusation. That is a very serious statement, especially in a country where media credibility is constantly being questioned. Now, whether you agree with Oshiomhole or not, one thing you cannot deny is that he came prepared with confidence. He repeatedly argued that Rufai was making claims without proper verification and accused him of presenting opinions as facts. This is where the conversation becomes very important. You see, in modern Nigerian media, especially political television programs, there is now a growing culture of confrontation. Interviews are no longer soft. Journalists are becoming more aggressive, more direct, and more willing to challenge politicians openly on live TV. And honestly, many Nigerians actually support this style because for years, politicians were rarely held accountable publicly. So broadcasters like Rufai Oseni have built a reputation for asking uncomfortable questions that many citizens feel politicians try to avoid. But the problem comes when interviews begin to look less like fact-based interrogations and more like personal arguments. That is exactly the impression Oshiomhole was trying to create during the Channels Television interview. He wanted viewers to believe that Rufai crossed the line from journalism into activism or emotional confrontation. That was the core of Oshiomhole's defense. Now let's talk about something else many people may have missed. Oshiomhole is not a newcomer to political media battles. This is a man who has spent decades in Nigerian politics, from labor union struggles to becoming governor and now senator. He understands television politics extremely well. So when he chose to appear on Politics Today with Sen Okinbaloye, that decision was strategic. Why? Because Channels Television is seen by many Nigerians as one of the country's most influential political platforms. Oshiomhole knew that responding there would give his side of the story national visibility and credibility. And another thing I noticed was the difference in interviewing style between Sen and Rufai. Sen Okinbaloye appeared calmer and more measured during the conversation, allowing Oshiomhole enough room to explain himself fully. That environment gave Oshiomhole the opportunity to organize his arguments carefully and appear more composed compared to the heated exchange on Aris TV. Now, politically speaking, this confrontation is bigger than both men. What Nigerians are really debating online is this: should journalists aggressively confront politicians, or should interviews remain neutral and restrained? That is the real national debate here. Supporters of Rufai Oseni believe journalists must challenge politicians strongly because many leaders avoid accountability when treated too softly. But supporters of Oshiomhole argue that journalists also have a responsibility to remain factual, balanced, and respectful, instead of turning interviews into emotional clashes. And honestly, both sides have valid points. A democracy needs fearless journalism. Without tough journalists, many important truths may never come out. But at the same time, journalism also depends heavily on accuracy, balance, and discipline. Once viewers begin to suspect bias or emotional involvement, trust starts to weaken. Another interesting aspect of this whole drama is how social media has amplified it. If this happened 10 years ago, the conversation might have ended after the television broadcast. But today, clips are everywhere on Facebook, TikTok, X, and YouTube. People are replaying moments, slowing down videos, analyzing facial expressions, and choosing sides almost like football fans. This is why television confrontations now carry enormous political consequences. A single interview can reshape public perception overnight. And let us also remember the original issue that sparked this argument: xenophobic attacks against Nigerians in South Africa. Ironically, that serious issue has almost disappeared from the conversation because attention has now shifted completely toward the media clash itself. That tells you something powerful about modern politics and television. Sometimes the confrontation becomes bigger than the issue being discussed. Now, did Oshiomhole successfully defend himself on Channels Television? In my opinion, he succeeded in one important area. He managed to shift the conversation from being entirely about him to becoming a debate about journalism standards and media conduct. That alone was politically significant. Instead of remaining on the defensive, he counterattacked and forced viewers to question Rufai's style and credibility as well. However, whether Nigerians accept his arguments is another matter entirely, because many viewers still admire Rufai Oseni precisely because he confronts politicians directly and refuses to behave timidly on air. So this battle is far from over. In fact, what happened may actually strengthen both men politically and professionally. For Rufai, supporters may see him as a fearless journalist standing up to powerful politicians. For Oshiomhole, supporters may see him as a politician bold enough to confront what he considers media intimidation and misinformation. And that is why this story has exploded nationally. At the end of the day, Nigerians are watching two strong personalities clash publicly in a country where political trust and media trust are both under intense scrutiny. One final thing before I round up. This entire episode should remind every Nigerian of the importance of critical thinking. Never accept any television argument blindly simply because a politician sounds confident or because a journalist sounds passionate. Always listen carefully. Always verify facts independently. Always separate emotions from evidence. Because in today's media environment, perception can sometimes move faster than truth itself. But I want to hear from you. Do you think Adams Oshiomhole was right to call out Rufai Oseni publicly? Or do you believe Rufai was simply doing his duty as a journalist? Who do you think handled the situation better? Drop your opinion in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because Nigerian politics is getting more dramatic every single day. And we'll always bring you the biggest stories with detailed breakdowns right here on the channel.